on Capitol Hill. Let's discuss today's developments with Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. He's the top Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk about all the new developments. The president says Soleimani was planning what he described as a big attack against the United States. The defense secretary says this attack was coming within a matter of days. Do you believe them?
I'll believe it when I see the intelligence that justifies it. You know, we don't need another weapons of mass destruction moment that led us to a war in Iraq in a previous administration. We need to know what the intelligence was and the facts deriving therefrom that created the imminent threat that made Soleimani singularly the most important figure to take out and get in terms of preventing such an attack. Then I'll believe it. But until then, I want to see the proof.
The Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said earlier today that they assessed what he called multiple pieces of information from not only the U.S. intelligence community, but also elsewhere as well. You're going to get, you and your colleagues, you're going to be getting a formal briefing tomorrow. What questions do you specifically have about that U.S. intelligence?
It's the essence of what I just said, Wolf. I want to hear what was the intelligence, the degree of certainty of the intelligence, what were the facts that gave rise to the imminent, and I underline and emphasis on imminent threat to the United States that was uniquely posed by Soleimani, and that eliminating Soleimani eliminated the threat, not just eliminated it temporarily, because Soleimani had to be working with others. So let's say he was the intellectual head of it, but at the end of the day, he's not the operational figure that was going to carry out whatever supposed threat existed. So you have to give us the reasoning why uniquely eliminating Soleimani, that other administrations, Republican and Democrats alike, passed on because of the consequences that would flow from that, this administration made a different choice. Give us the facts for that, because this is going to ultimately make the case as to, one, would the president have the authority to do this? Number two, what's the follow-on? What's your strategy for the follow-on? And what we've seen is a path where the president had strikes in Syria and Iraq. Then you have the taking out of Soleimani. Then you have 3,500 troops being sent. We see an escalation without any authorization at all by Congress, and it's time for Congress to put the brakes, get the information, and then make a decision.
If the intelligence, and we don't know what it will show, but let's say it shows that there was intelligence saying that American diplomats and military personnel were being targeted within a matter of days, targeted for death by Soleimani and his associates, would that have justified his targeted killing?
Well, we'll have to see the evidence. Let's assume that all of the evidence and the confidence in that intelligence assessment led to that conclusion. The corollary question is, was Soleimani uniquely going to, taking out Soleimani uniquely ending the threat, or is the threat still alive? If the threat is still alive, then you have to question whether the follow-on of what comes as a result of having a Soleimani taking off the battlefield is still of value. If the threat that supposedly existed is totally eliminated by getting rid of Soleimani, then it may have been a legitimate attempt by the president.
If and when Iran retaliates, and everyone assumes they will in some form, won't President Trump have to respond to that retaliation? How do you stop all of this from escalating into a full-scale war?
Well, that's exactly why I support the efforts that Senator Kaine, I met with him today to discuss his War Powers Act resolution. I understand the House of Representatives, Representative Slotkin, has an effort on the same vehicle, a War Powers resolution in the House. I think this is the only way that Congress constrains the president to march off to war unless the Congress gives him the authorization. Otherwise, he can just continue down this march. And I am afraid that what we will have is an escalating series of responses to the last response that leads us on a path to an unauthorized war. And that would be a tragic mistake at the end of the day. So there is a difference between defending the security of the United States, its troops, and its allies, and ultimately bumbling into a war. The president has a series of tactics here. He does not have a strategy I've been calling for most of 2019 as to how to deal with Iran. He's failed on having a strategy. Now we are on a series of actions that, without a strategy, can lead us into a war that I think would be calamitous for the United States.
Senator Menendez, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.